The more places you bomb, the more people you piss off, the more enemies you create. Generations of enemies. We're going to be fighting adults now who were kids when we went into Iraq and Afghanistan. Maybe we blew up their house. Maybe we killed their mom. Maybe we shot their dog. Those things happened, and they didn't forget. Even if we did, or our media did, or our population did, they never forgot. They're keeping score, and many of them want payback. Welcome to Independent Americans. Welcome to episode 464. It is Friday, March 13th. Happy Friday. I am your host, Paul Rieckhoff, and I'm coming to you from New York City, USA, where the weather again is crappy. Crappy. This is March. Nice day, crappy day. Nice day, crappy day. But unfortunately, the news is largely crappy, but we're going to help you get through it, especially today. It's a very, very important day in America and in the world. There's a lot coming at us, and I'm going to help you navigate it with some positivity and some insight. Today's artist, every day I give you an artist of the day. One that I share with my boys is Bonnie Raitt, because she's a legend. And so is our guest today, also named Bonnie. But Bonnie Raitt is tough, smart, thoughtful, inspiring, full of heart, just like our guest. Bonnie Raitt, American songwriter that you should know about if you're young and you don't, go back and learn. Blues, country, folk, rock, all kind of mixed together in a beautiful way. 13 Grammys, Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, ranked number 50 on Rolling Stone's all-time greatest singers of all time, and number 89 on their 100 greatest guitarists of all time. Probably should be harder than that. But she's behind iconic hits like I Can't Make You Love Me, and Something to Talk About, of course, and the cover of Angel from Montgomery, one of my favorites of all time, and perfect, because our guest today is an angel, a true angel, and she's going to give us all something to talk about, but some of the toughest stuff to talk about. And she brings it every single episode. She's a returning champion, and I'm going to bring it to you to end out this week with the 5 I's that you can count on: independence, integrity, information, inspiration, and impact. And our guest today brings all that and then some. The great and powerful Bonnie Carroll is back. She is a Medal of Freedom recipient, which is a rare thing. It's the highest civilian honor, kind of like the civilian equivalent of the Medal of Honor, the Medal of Freedom. She's an Air Force veteran. She is the founder and visionary leader behind TAPS, Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors. A lot of other folks are talking about the casualties and their names and their numbers. We're going to talk with Bonnie about what's happening now to their families and what happens next and how you can help. This is a really, really important conversation that goes deeper and will empower you to understand this moment when American caskets continue to come home. Bonnie Carroll is a true helper, and she's coming up next. But first, on this Friday, this fierce and fiery Friday, there is a ton happening today. And even though it's Friday, there will be no breaks. There will be no breaks over the weekend. This is our new normal, but I'm going to help you, especially on Friday. Stay vigilant. All right. Very important stuff to cover throughout this episode, but some stuff that definitely proves if you're not angry, you're not paying attention. So let me help you pay attention with our top topic. All right, the top topic, I think until further notice, is Iran overflow. That's what I'm going to call it, because it's now overflowing into 13 plus countries. It's overflowing into our homeland. It's overflowing into our economy. It's overflowing around the world, but also continuing to flow, sadly, tragically, is the human cost of that war. We continue to find information out about the tragedy involving the strike on the school full of girls in Iran, which should have been a preventable tragedy. We're getting more information about that. But today, breaking news, 6 more American service members are dead. 6 more. They were the crew of a KC-135 that was lost in Iraq. They've been confirmed deceased. CENTCOM says all 6 crew members aboard the refueling aircraft went down in western Iraq and are now confirmed deceased. They were flying over friendly airspace. The circumstances are under investigation, and they say it was not due to hostile fire or friendly fire. The identities are going to flow out in the next 24 hours as they notify the next of kin, which is a very difficult and complicated endeavor. We're going to talk to Bonnie Carroll about that. She is an expert on this process and moments like this. But it's another tremendous loss. 13 now service members lost. If you want to help their loved ones and the loved ones like them killed in action and those lost to accidents and suicides and even the shooting yesterday in Virginia, which we're going to get to, check out the vital work of TAPS Tragedy Assistance Program survivors linked in my show notes here. And coming up next with Bonnie Carroll, she's going to take us deeper into this heroic and vital work. But you can trust them. You can trust TAPS always. And I wish that was true in more places right now, because we're really in a terrible, terrible place in America and in the world where we can't believe anything that our government says. But still, some of what they say is true, which makes it complicated. Like they can issue a warning about a drone threat in California from the FBI. That can be true even though the FBI is run by an extremist liar like Kash Patel. We can get casualty numbers from culture warrior Pete Hegseth, who we shouldn't trust, but that information can still be true. This is a very, very confusing and complicated reflection of our times. We're asking the Iranian people to stand up against a lying regime that wants to kill them, but they're being asked by a man in Trump who's lying and has also been killing them. So we have to question everything. We have to look for leaders we can trust. We have to stick together in any moment that we can, the people against the powerful. And there's never been a more important time in our lifetime, never been a more important time, especially around the issues of war, to stay vigilant. All right, I'm going to continue to stay vigilant. My voice is recovering. Thank you to all of you for your good wishes and recommendations about things I should drink. But we need to maintain our vigilance, and I need to keep speaking out about it, and you do too, because there may be boots on the ground soon in Iran. Is it happening? We don't know for sure, maybe. But I want to say to you, don't just watch what they say, watch what they do, especially around troop movements, something that I'm uniquely positioned to cover. I'm one of the few veterans that has a podcast that has this kind of reach, one of the few veterans in the media that understands this from a personal standpoint. I've got lots of connections and sources all across the military and veterans community, and I've been there myself. So I want to help you understand it. So especially noteworthy are troop movements. And we talked earlier this week with Dan Lamothe about the 82nd Airborne having their training canceled. If you didn't hear that episode from Wednesday, go back and check it out. It's very, very important. We also flagged for you months ago that the 11th Airborne Corps was on standby in Minneapolis. And now there's a movement of Marines that you need to track on. U.S. officials are now confirming to the Wall Street Journal and Fox News that the Pentagon is sending the USS Tripoli, a Marine amphibious ready group, and the 31st MEU, Marine Expeditionary Unit, to the Middle East. The Tripoli is stationed out of Japan. It's going to take about 2 weeks to get there. And accompanying the ARG and the MEU are about 2,500 Marines. This was first reported by Laura Sigelman at the Wall Street Journal. Now, excuse me. This is important. Marines can do a lot of things. They can help evacuate people. They can bolster forces at the embassy. They can take a beach. But the important point is more and more U.S. forces are being moved into the Middle East. And they're being moved away from places like Asia, South America, Europe. It is continuing to consolidate our military resources in a way that I think is overcommitting us. I've warned, the war in Iran is bigger than Iran. It can become a sucking chest wound for our military. And that continues to be the case with about $1 billion a day being spent, more American lives being lost, and more of our military assets being consolidated and pulled into one area. And a reminder about all this from our friend Phil Cly, one of the smartest writers, a post 9/11 vet. I urge you to follow him on all social media. His last name is KLY. He had a quote from George Washington. The Constitution vests the power of declaring war with Congress. Therefore, no offensive expedition of importance can be undertaken until after they shall have deliberated upon the subject and arise such a measure. George Washington to William Moultrie, 28 August, 1793. George Washington warned us and dictated how this is supposed to be done. Congress is not supposed to be blown by. Congress is not supposed to be outflanked. Congress is supposed to be central to the issues of war, especially offensive expeditions, as George Washington called. It's another area, especially, maybe more important than anything else, when it comes to declarations of war that we don't have anymore since World War II, but now engagements of war, and this is a war. We must continue to challenge the fact that Donald Trump is doing anything he wants with the most powerful military the world has ever seen, and nothing is stopping him. We need Congress to stay vigilant. And if they won't, each of us, each of you, must stay vigilant. All right, meanwhile, there continues to be testimony, press conferences, perspective being added by military leaders. And I want to play this one for you from General Grenkowicz. General Grenkowicz is an Air Force general and was testifying yesterday before Congress. Tough name to say, but important words to hear. Check this out. Chris?
What I've observed over the course of studying air power in history is that anytime you attack a civilian population, you usually end up finding that it just hardens their resolve. We take this all the way back to the London Blitz in World War II. Right. The Brits just had a stiff upper lip and kept on fighting. And I think that's what we've seen in Ukraine as well.
This is pretty basic, but important to remind people. What he said was, I've observed over the course of history, studying air power and history, is that anytime you attack a civilian population, you usually end up finding that it just hardens their resolves. Yes, duh. I wrote about this in my book, Chasing Ghosts, back in 2006. I called it the gremlins theory. You don't want to make more gremlins. You don't want to make more enemies. And the more people you kill, the more places you bomb, the more people you piss off, the more enemies you create. Generations of enemies. We're going to be fighting adults now who were kids when we went into Iraq and Afghanistan. Maybe we blew up their house. Maybe we killed their mom. Maybe we shot their dog. Those things happened, and they didn't forget. Even if we did, or our media did, or our population did, they never forgot. They're keeping score, and many of them want payback. And that payback is coming in many, many forms. And it's another reason we need to stay vigilant, not just in Iran and the Middle East, but in Europe, anywhere Americans are stationed, including now where Americans are no longer wearing their military uniforms out in the streets and even on base. Now is the time to stay vigilant. All right, because the human casualties continue, Iranian and American and people throughout the region, from Kuwait to Israel, the casualties continue, but so does the spin. And the attacks not only on Iran, but on the truth and on the American press. Remember that Trump is still waging war against the free press, and it's being led by his acting Secretary of Culture War, Pete Hegseth, who spends more time attacking Harvard and CNN than he does focused on finding Iranian uranium or guarding our homeland against drone attacks. This is true. He continues to focus on the culture war, continues to attack our press, even more aggressively than he definitely attacks Putin. Check this out.
They're confused, and we know it. Our response? We will keep pressing. We will keep pushing, keep advancing. No quarter, no mercy for our enemies. Yet some in this crew, in the press, just can't stop. Allow me to make a few suggestions. People look up at the TV and they see banners, they see headlines. I used to be in that business, and I know that everything is written intentionally. For example, a banner or a headline, Mideast war intensifies, splashing on the screen the last couple of days, alongside visuals of civilian or energy targets that Iran has hit, because that's what they do. What should the banner read instead? How about Iran increasingly desperate?
All right, these attacks on the press are bad. I think they undermine our democracy, and they are deeply, deeply un-American and consistent, because attacking the press is a key prong in their strategy. Never forget that. They want to undermine the institutions. They want to control the message. They want to consolidate the propaganda. That's why they want to remove the Pentagon press corps and control every unflattering picture of Hegseth that goes out from Washington. It's why he does straight to camera with this cinematic shit every day instead of talking to 60 Minutes or talking to other media sources. They want to control the message, and they want it to be their message, precisely their message. And the first line of what he said is important. Beyond the message, the actual content is important. because sometimes it's even more dangerous and potentially illegal. The first line that Hegseth said was no quarter, no mercy for our enemies. He said that out loud. No quarter means refusing to show mercy, spare lives, or take prisoners during conflict, which implies a fight to the death and originates from military context, meaning no safe places or no quarters for the enemy. Here's why it's important. It's now a prohibited war crime under international law, as the ICRC noted, and many others, I hope, will note today. That's pretty close to an illegal order. And Congressman, decorated veteran, important patriotic voice, a Democrat, despite all that, he's a Democrat. I wish he was an independent. Eugene Binman posted on X today, former Army JAG here. No quarter orders are a violation of the law of war and Geneva Conventions. This is the same order reportedly given during the Caribbean boat strikes. Secretary of War is establishing a pattern of issuing illegal orders. I've trained hundreds of soldiers on the law of war. Our service members have an obligation to follow that law. Now, this is true and important. And it sounds like, to me, the latest blatant example of why Hegseth should be removed. And if the president won't, Congress must. But will the Democrats or anyone else make that important case? Seems like they can't focus. I know Kristi Noem is out now, and maybe that will result in some kind of change, but Hegseth's still there. He's still driving the culture. He's still potentially putting out illegal orders. So is anybody going to make that case, or are they just going to forget about it and let him move on again, like after Signalgate and the September 2nd boat strikes, the last time we talked about war crimes, right? This is why I say Congress isn't even a speed bump. They're the mall cops of our democracy. I said that on Colbert this week, and that clip has gone viral. We're now over 3 million views on Instagram for that clip. We've got more than Shaq and Bad Bunny, because people understand that that message is true, and they are deeply concerned too. Congress, they're not even the mall cops of our democracy. They're less than that, and they're failing our democracy, and especially they're failing our troops. Now, in a time of war, especially, they aren't doing shit. They aren't doing shit. And we need to call them out for it. I don't want to hear from Democrats that they're not in the majority. They can still have a plan. They can still have a strategy. If they shut down the government over healthcare and they shut down DHS over ICE, why can't they shut down the government over body bags that continue to come home, an illegal war in Iran, and him talking about going into Cuba? They've got to get more creative. There's a failure of imagination on too many sides, except for inside the White House. It's another reason we all need to stay vigilant. Okay, but keep in mind, they continue to attack the press in different ways. They want to dismantle the press. They want to stop anyone who can challenge them, who can ask hard questions, especially in a time of war. Don't forget, they put Don Lemon in jail. I wouldn't be surprised if they do that to more people. I said that to Colbert. Maybe they try to put him in jail. Maybe they'll try to put me in jail. That would be an interesting world if you've got a prison lineup of Don Lemon, Stephen Colbert, Adam Kinzinger, and me. I'll tell you one thing, if we had a radio show, it would be interesting. But this is a very real, consistent part of their strategy to continue to intimidate people and stop them from speaking out. And now the New York Times' Kate Robertson is reporting that the Pentagon officials are upset over a Washington Post tip box. A tip box. Washington Post's got a tip box. Hey, you got a tip on something happening? Drop it in our tip box, our virtual tip box. Something that's very common for news outlets. Sorry, it was reported by Eric Weppel. But I saw the post from Katie Robertson, who amplified it. This is very, very important because tip boxes are pretty much how they're doing their job. I mean, what they should say is that the Pentagon is upset at the Washington Post for doing their job because this is typical, unacceptable, authoritarian, and un-American what the Pentagon is doing, and on brand for Hegseth and company. And there's more, of course, because with Hegseth, there's always more. Last night, he posted another dramatic Hegseth looking at camera with the cinematic shit video. And it said that he is focused now on the education world again, right? He announced that professional military educators should produce warfighters and leaders, not wokesters. Every time I see wokesters, I think of like Oreo cakesters. And that's about how serious this is, because he says they are establishing a task force to evaluate our senior service colleges and ensure the focus is where it belongs. No distractions, just warfighting. Again, he's focused on attacking institutions, and it's not frivolous. This is by strategy, because the acting Secretary of Culture War continues to lead the culture war at and with the Pentagon. These are dark times in America, but we need to continue to push back and especially amplify the light that is critical to put them on blast, to put them on notice, and to call them out. And that light is often the journalists that are bravely stepping up, independent or otherwise. If they are calling them out and they are bringing your focus to an issue that matters, you should stay vigilant and watch it. All right. Big shout out to Chris Rosenthal, who continues to do a brilliant job on this show and help me bring you amazing guests. Coming up, we've got Bonnie Carroll in just a couple minutes. A reminder that in the midst of all this, every Friday and just about every day, ICE continues to run rampant across America. We will not lose focus on that. Bad shit continues to come, and not enough Americans are focused on ICE because it is a second prong in their attack on what's happening in America. You've got this overseas culture war and this domestic culture war. Don't believe the government around that. Believe your eyes. You're not seeing as many ICE videos anymore, are you? No, now you're seeing the crazy war videos with SpongeBob and Ray Lewis. That is also by design. But don't forget, they gassed kids in Portland and they're kicking in houses without warrants. And ICE needs to be put on trial. And I think that ICE needs to be dismantled and shut down, because Trump is all gas and no brakes in Iran, across the Western Hemisphere, and across America. And that also includes his continued bizarre, dangerous support for Vladimir Putin in Russia and his lack of support for Ukraine. All right, this is day 1480 of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Ukrainians continue to fight on bravely, continue to meet this moment and offer their help. And they've offered their valuable assistance in attacking drones and using drones and defending against drones. They are the best at this in the world. So what did Trump do? He went on Fox News today, and guess what he said? No, we don't need Ukraine's help in drone defense, Trump said. He said, we know more about drones than anybody. We have the best drones in the world, actually. No, we don't, and he's wrong, and he's so stupid and corrupt, and it's another example of how he can't open himself up to receive help from Zelensky, another example of how he finds a way, he always finds a way to help Putin. I mean, this is the stuff that makes me lose my voice, but it's so stupid and corrupt. And guess what? Trump loves Putin, and Putin loves Trump, and Putin is happy for another reason today, because in the midst of all of this, you probably missed this, below the radar. Yesterday, Trump announced that he's removing sanctions on Russia to help oil flow amid the Iran conflict. So he drove the car in the ditch, and now he wants credit for pulling the car out of the ditch and giving it to a car thief, basically. But they have removed their sanctions on Russia, which is absolutely predictable and shameful. Trump just made another move to help Putin, and he'll try to spin it. But yet again, Putin is smiling. Ukraine is furious again and betrayed by Trump, and our enemies are celebrating. The New York Times had this title that I want to call out. They said, breaking news. I'm reading this. Trump removes sanctions on Russia to help oil flow amid Iran conflict. That's their headline. But the headline is ridiculously irresponsible because of the part that says to help oil flow amid Iran conflict. They didn't put that part in quotes, or they didn't not include it at all. So they made it sound like it was a fact that Trump is doing this to help oil flow amid the Iran conflict. And I think that's terrible news reported terribly. And the world and America are less safe. And it's another example of where around the media, conservative, liberal, corporate, independent, we all need to stay vigilant. All right, I'm trying to stay vigilant and keep my voice. I'm doing some lemon and honey and all that, and I got to rest. But I'm also continuing to coach basketball, which makes it tough. Shout out to my big guy, Ryder and the Thunder last night. They won by 15, and they are still undefeated. Tonight, my little guy and the Spurs are in another matchup that is always fun, and that's part of why I have no voice. But despite that, there are issues that you need to focus on, especially here at home, that might be below the radar. All right, here's what I want to remind you. The violence isn't limited to Iran. It's going to come home, and it's already coming home. We've had 2 domestic terror attacks in 2 places in one day, just yesterday, and the threats of drones in California, which is just the tip of what could be a drone iceberg. Now, I've warned this is going to be a hell of a hard year for our FBI and our local law enforcement nationwide. And it's going to be an especially hard year for our minority groups and people who have traditionally been targeted all across this country. And that includes our Jewish brothers and sisters. And by now, you know that a suspect was killed in an attack on a huge Michigan synagogue. Security guards opened fire on a driver who tried to ram into the building and drove down the hall. A guard was hit and injured, but the security forces that had been trained by the FBI, as many synagogue leaders have been, responded heroically. We're finding out now that the synagogue attacker had Lebanese family that died in the airstrike. The man's been identified as a U.S. citizen born in Lebanon who worked outside of Detroit. The attack on the temple has left Jewish communities across the country rattled, but they are aware. They know about this threat, and they are ready, and many of them are stepping up heroically to help. But it's a reminder that they are under attack, and there's especially a violent and dangerous time for our Jewish brothers and sisters. The same is true for our Muslim brothers and sisters, and for our LGBTQ brothers and sisters, and our kids in schools, and everyone. Because we are less safe in this spring than, in my view, we have been at any other time since 9/11. Because we're seeing it all overflow, including yesterday in a tragic shooting at Old Dominion University, where Lieutenant Colonel Brandon Shaw was killed. Brandon Shaw was a hero. He was a devoted professor of military science and a leader of the university's ROTC program. He was a post-9/11 veteran, like me and so many others. He served overseas with the 82nd Airborne and others. He's the kind of guy you want leading ROTC cadets. And he died protecting them. He died with them, for them. And the ROTC candidates, amazingly, but not surprisingly, responded. They neutralized the attacker and prevented a further tragedy. It sounds like they subdued him and killed him after they killed their professor. It was a terrible situation, but another example of how people can step up. People can meet the moment. When I say look for the helpers, they can come in all forms. But as a reminder, we've now had 4 terror attacks on U.S. soil, at least since the start of the war in Iran. The Austin shooting, the New York bomb thrower outside of Gracie Mansion, where we have a newly elected Muslim mayor. There's now the Old Dominion shooter, the Michigan synagogue car attack. And meanwhile, Kash Patel is focused on the UFC, and our enemies are celebrating. Stay vigilant, people. Stay vigilant. All right, these are weird times and tough times. Coming up, Bonnie Carroll is going to help us navigate them. There's no better person to do it. But here's one that's way below the radar that is both serious and going to be weird. There is a missing retired Air Force general who consulted on UFOs and consulted for UFOs for Blink-182's Tom DeLonge. Retired Air Force General William McCasklen has been missing. Dozens of searchers have found no indication of where the 68-year-old can be. He served a long career in the military. He also had a relationship with Blink-182 frontman Tom DeLonge. He was an unpaid consultant on military and scientific matters related to UFOs for the Rockers' fiction and media projects, as of course was highlighted by the folks at Fox News because they know what gets clicks. But the FBI has now joined the search. Hopefully Kash Patel can make time for this and finding Savannah Guthrie's mom and get away from chugging beers with the UFC. And I hope he'll stay away from our World Baseball Classic and Paralympic team. But before he retired, General McCasklen oversaw the research laboratory at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base near Dayton, Ohio. They've been looking for him for weeks now. He left behind his cell phone, prescription glasses, and investigators believe that his hiking boots, wallet, and a .38 caliber revolver are missing from the home. They have not uncovered any evidence of foul play, but they haven't ruled out anything. There is a silver alert out for him, which is an alert for missing people over 50, which is going to make some of you over 50 feel really old. But His wife has posted a message saying Neil is at some risk, but not from dementia, but he was confused. He was not confused and disoriented. It's just a very strange situation. And because it has a connection to UFOs, it will probably spark tons of conspiracy theories. I will continue to try to bring you the facts. And I hope we can help spread the word that people are looking for General McCaslin. He was an avid outdoorsman. They're using dogs, drones, helicopters to try to look for him and spread the word if you live in that area. But it's another example of a weird and wild story where there's going to be truth and there's going to be cash patella. We're going to have to dissect between them all. And of course, stay vigilant. All right, we'll have more on veterans issues, on what happens when someone is killed in action, what happens when someone is killed in training, coming up with Bonnie. But before we do, just a reminder that we will continue to focus on independent politics. We have been focused on the Iran war, but I will always bring a focus on our independent movement. I will bring you more independent candidates in the days to come. If you're new here after Colbert, welcome. Go back and check out our recent conversations with independent voices, ranging from Mayor Yemi Mobolade of Colorado Springs to the great Jesse Ventura, former independent governor of Minnesota. If you haven't heard that one, it's fire. And also guys who are running for Senate, like Todd Achilles in Idaho, Brian Bangs in South Dakota, Dan Osborne in Nebraska. And coming up soon, we will have Seth Bodner, who just declared in Montana. He's also a Green Beret and a Rhodes Scholar. But independent candidates and issues are going to be at the center of what we do here, because the Republicans are gone and the Democrats suck. That's why 45% plus of Americans are independents, more and more by the day, and more than half of veterans, because we believe that these independent candidates are the people's champion. We're not just moving the needle, we are the needle. That's why I'm reminding everybody about my calls from earlier this week. We need independent and an independent vet, or maybe more, to run against Republican failure Lindsey Graham from South Carolina. If you are an independent veteran, or you know one that wants to run against Lindsey Graham in South Carolina, this is your moment. We need you. Your country needs you. South Carolina needs you. I'm trying to get Stephen Colbert to run, but if he won't, I'm looking for an independent veteran. So hit me up if you know one, or if that's you. Also, Democrat failure, John Fetterman in Pennsylvania, who is a blazing chicken hawk and just completely, at this point, failing. If you want to run against John Fetterman in Pennsylvania, hit me up. And maybe today, coming up, we have a guest who might run in Alaska as an independent vet. More on that in a second. But check out independentveteransofamerica.org. We are recruiting and we need your help. You can donate. You can spread the word. You can share our message and our information. We want to field 100 candidates to meet this moment and run in this fall election. And even if they don't win, they're going to be powerful voices in pushing back against authoritarianism and demanding accountability on issues of war. It is a really, really important part of our politics that is underreported and under-resourced. But you can help. You can join the movement, declare your independence, leave the herds, join the pack, and stay vigilant. All right, finally, we always do a little bit of culture and sports whenever I can, especially on a Friday. And I want to give a shout out to a real media legend, a voice that you could trust for many, many years, Ernie Anastas, the iconic New York City anchor who was on basically my entire childhood on local TV networks here in New York City, has died at 82 years old. Like many in New York, I grew up watching Ernie Anastas. He was a true icon and a New York legend, but he was somebody we could trust during good times and especially in the bad. He was a voice of honesty and integrity, and I want to salute him, and I want to honor his memory and thank Ernie for all his years of being there for us. We'll always love and appreciate you, and our heart goes out to your family and your friends and your loved ones. But you've set an example for me and so many others in media of what integrity, independence, and responsibility, and good leadership, a good role model for our kids really looks like. So rest in peace, Ernie Anastas. We're going to miss you, man. All right, finally, let's talk some sports. There is the intersection of sports and politics happening in a big way. I've talked about it a lot. I think now you can really see it unfolding. That includes the UFC event that's going to happen at the White House. A date has now been set. The unprecedented live event will be June 14th. June 14th will be the UFC at the White House, which is going to be nuts. I don't know what else to tell you. Dana White has now announced that he's going to make 85,000 tickets free and available to the public. I would invite Dana White to come on this show. I don't know if he will, but I would be happy to invite him and have a conversation. The fights are now being dubbed Freedom Fights 250 in honor of the 250th anniversary of the U.S. independence. It's going to take place nearby on the south lawn of the White House, which is going to be very, very weird. I don't know what George Washington would think about that. And White said he's going to give out 85,000 tickets to the people in the ellipse, and the tickets are going to be free. He's going to announce how they're giving them away, but he said you should plan on going to Washington for this event. So 85,000 UFC fans in a giant open space just a few blocks from the Capitol. What could go wrong? What could go wrong? We will find out. All right, there's also a ton going wrong in the Middle East. And now soon for Formula One. I'm a huge Formula One fan. I'm a big fan of F1 and so much about it. But it looks like now F1 is going to have to cancel the Bahrain and Saudi Arabia races because of the Iran war, another overflowing impact. Formula One is set to cancel the April races in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia because, a missile might land there. They were due to race on Bahrain on April 12th and Saudi Arabia in April 19th. Both countries have already been hit since the U.S. and Israel started to attack Iran. It looks like they might just be canceled outright, and I don't think they're going to make them up. But this is another example of how the war's impact will overflow far beyond just the military. F1 canceling 2 races is a very big deal for our sports and culture and engaging people who wouldn't otherwise be tracking on politics. There's lots of people who don't care about politics, but they care about their F1, and that is now being disrupted. All right, not being disrupted. The World Baseball Classic happening this weekend. Check it out tonight, Friday. Korea will play the Dominican at 6:30, and the U.S. trying to bounce back from that catastrophe against Italy will be up against Canada. This is not one they should take lightly, but I'm hoping Aaron Judge and the boys can get it together and dominate against Canada. And looks like they are careening toward a potential final against, who else? Shohei Ohtani and Japan. That will be exciting. The world will be watching. And the world should also be watching, but it's probably not the Winter Paralympics. It's day 7 of the Winter Paralympics. I'm going to continue to bring your attention there because it's awesome. The U.S. sled hockey team has booked its spot in the gold medal game with a 6-0 semifinal victory over Chechnya. Canada and China are going to play on the other side of the semifinal. Para snowboarding concluded with the bank slalom. 4 U.S. riders got medals. Kendall Gretsch won her 4th medal of the Paralympics, her 4th gold in the para biathlon sprint pursuit, which is amazing. Para-alpine skiing is being held, and Canada and China are advancing Saturday to the gold medal mixed team in wheelchair curling, which is just amazing. All right, but here's the thing. You should watch it because the Paralympics show how people can respond to adversity, how heroes can meet the moment and overcome their darkest days to inspire others. The Paralympics is incredible. It shows that you can bounce off bottom and do great things and overcome the hardest, most dangerous, most devastating of times. You can overcome them, like our guest today, who lost her own husband in a plane crash decades ago, and today is helping the families that lost their loved ones in a plane crash this weekend. She is a true, incredible American hero, and I'm honored to have her on this show on this Friday. She is someone who always meets the moment, who will leave you inspired in these hard times, and someone who will definitely help us all stay vigilant. Independent Americans around the country and around the world on this very important, reflective, chaotic Friday, when we are trying to process everything, I thought long and hard about who the best person to have in this moment would be. And it is a person that has joined us before that I adore. She is one of the bravest and best people I know. Inside the Pentagon, the people who know literally call her Saint Bonnie. She is a retired major in the Air Force Reserve. She worked at the Pentagon War Plans and Mobilization Office following 9/11. Those of you who've been watching or listening for a long time know her, but those of you who don't, she served for 16 years in the Army National Guard as a transportation officer, logistics and exec officer, and she established a tragedy assistance program for survivors in 1994, which is a vital network that is there when folks need them most, when there is a killed in action, when there are folks who need immediate help. They are there for the casualties and for the families of those that are experienced the most unimaginable tragedy. And she was motivated by the death of her own husband, Brigadier General Tom Carroll, who himself died in a 1992 Army plane crash, along with 7 other soldiers. She transformed her loss into the mission that is TAPS. TAPS is a national and international leader. Bonnie has worked for presidents of both backgrounds and alongside people of all backgrounds around the world, to include supporting folks in Ukraine and conflict zones around the world. She is a legend, and she is a Medal of Freedom recipient. And I'm honored to call her a mentor and a very, very dear friend. The great and powerful Bonnie Carroll is back on Independent Americans. Welcome back, my friend.
Paul, it is so great to be with you, and thank you for that. You and I have been on this journey together. You have been a mentor to me. It's an honor to know you, and it's an honor to serve with you.
I love you and I love your team, and for so many reasons, but especially because of what I know you're doing now and you're doing always, not just now, and what you'll do when the cameras and the attention fade. I want to talk about the latest killed in action that were announced today. I want to talk about maybe some of the less reported casualties and human losses. I want to talk about suicide, continues to devastate our community. But let me start with the question I ask everybody. Where are you and how are you in this really challenging moment?
Yeah, I'm at our national headquarters, which is in Arlington, Virginia, and it has been a very difficult 24 hours. I just got off the phone with a mom who has been with us now for, gosh, nearly 20 years because her son was killed in Afghanistan at the height of the war. And she just told me that her other son, her sole surviving child, is a KC-130 pilot who is deployed. And she's just holding her breath. And she just wanted to sit with her TAPS family today and hold on tight. They have not gotten word. The names have not been released. I kind of assured her that if she had not heard at this point, that, we'll say prayers that her son is safe. But for our families, they are, leaning in because they know what the journey is like for the families just getting the news today.
Bonnie, can you talk about what the last, not just 24 hours, but the last week, especially since Iran started? Today, I'm going to get into the latest casualties, but what has the week been like for you and your team? Can you explain to folks what you all do in moments like this, where for some folks it's just a name or a picture, but you all are literally the tip of the spears? Can you explain what the last week has been like for you and your team?
Thanks, Paul. TAPS is the national organization for all those grieving the loss of a military or veteran loved one. And what a lot of people don't understand, but Paul, what you understand is that right now, the rate of survivors coming to TAPS is 3 times what it was at the height of the war. Right now, we're seeing deaths. It's a rate of, we're getting families 26 per day on average. Last year, 9,560 new surviving families. And that was as a result of 20 years of deployments, of injuries, of illnesses, post-traumatic stress leading to suicide, burn pit exposure leading to cancers. So regardless of how or where that service member dies, we are there for the families. It is about life and service. Of course, the high-profile losses bring America's attention back to service and sacrifice so that America understands that when our brave men and women step forward to serve in defense of democracy, there could be a price to pay. But for TAPS, we are there for every family who suffers a loss.
And I think it's important for folks to understand when they hear those numbers, that is the human cost of war, the long tail
Yes.
of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Those of us who've served, who are connected to the military and veterans community, know we continue to lose friends for all kinds of different reasons: suicide, toxin exposure. And the suicide issue is one that's so important because it's part of that long tail and the cost of war. Now, we have just finally wound down our operations in Iraq, and this plane goes down in Iraq. Here we are again in so many ways. But can you explain what life is like for those families who are just now, either through that crash or the other 13 that we now know of who've been killed in action? What is it like for them right now? I know it's unimaginable for most of us, but maybe you can take us through the
Yeah.
process and how TAPS helps them in that process.
Absolutely. And we have now, 30 plus years of relationship with all of the casualty branches, the mortuary affairs, and we do training for notification officers. We have a well-established relationship. So we go into this as one team, providing support, filling gaps. But for the family, that knock on the door is unimaginable. When my husband was killed along with 7 other soldiers, it was impossible to comprehend the magnitude of that loss for our family. 2 things are happening, Paul, at once. There's the very public breaking news on CNN, all of the dignified transfer at Dover. There is the ceremony. There is, a call letter from the president. I mean, it's that level of our nation mourning sacrifice in our military. But for the family, it's planning a funeral. It's bringing family members together to mourn a loss. It's sorting out how are we going to go forward just day to day. So TAPS is there both in the public moments, but also in the very private moments.
And can we talk about that for a minute? Because I think it's really important for people to understand the government doesn't do everything, right? And you all are there for decades later for the children that survive. You do these amazing good grief camps for the children, and I've recommended so many families to you guys and so many kids who've grown up in your programs. But right now they've got to figure out like the SGLI, the life insurance. They've got to figure out what happens if you want to be buried at Arlington. Maybe they're caring for another sick family member. They have to figure out who's going to care for that person. But there's this crazy maelstrom of stuff they have to understand and go through. And maybe really what you said is so important. You're training a whole new generation of casualty officers who didn't go through this in Iraq and Afghanistan. So they might be doing this for the first time. I think it was Taking Chance was that movie on HBO with Kevin Bacon that was so powerful. It showed what that was like. But can you take us into the hard and really important work that you guys do that isn't as high profile?
Absolutely. And, ironically, this morning I was doing a long planned training for air crash investigators on the human side of aviation loss in the military. And I've been doing that for about 25 years, once a quarter. But going into it today and talking about, the fact that one of those board presidents sitting in that class would be assigned to this loss. And we had this incredibly deep conversation, not only about, how they do the work they do, the emotional toll of that loss, and how we as human beings process a sudden traumatic, violent death, particularly in aviation.
Bonnie, you're a thought leader. You help the world understand grief, but you also work in Washington. You know where the power is. Can you help folks, especially maybe for younger folks, understand kind of how to process this moment at a time when, like, we didn't think it could be more politicized than Iraq. But here we have this, which is actually, it looks like the most unpopular war in recent memory. You and me and so many worked hard to separate the people from the policy, the war from the warriors. And the Vietnam vets went through hell in many ways because they couldn't separate it. But the country learned, even if you don't like George Bush and the Iraq war, you can still honor our troops. I think it's going to be really hard for a lot of folks who are mad about this war, who are mad about Trump. Can you give them some guidance or some perspective in how to approach this moment, even if they're angry and they feel upset but they still want to honor the folks who are being killed and wounded?
Absolutely, Paul. Thank you. And we must honor those who have stepped forward to serve this country and gone where the mission has sent them. And if that means that they have lost their lives, that these families have given everything for this country, it is incredibly difficult. And the last thing, for the family's sake, we keep everything very non-political, that we honor life and service, that we mourn the loss of a life. We get to know our fallen heroes through the eyes of their kids, through their moms, through their spouses, how they fell in love, how they married, how they met, and how the decision was made for this individual to serve their nation. For us, it is very personal. And despite politics, it is. But I have to tell you right now, for our families, that complicates the grief tremendously, because they are watching things unfold and feeling the same kind of confusion and anger and uncertainty that much of America is feeling right now.
Bonnie, we talk about why vigilance is so important. I think when I was in Iraq, the SGLI benefit was $250,000, right? So I remember signing the paperwork. I didn't have any kids at the time, so I signed it over to my nephew, who was a teenager. I put his name down. I remember that moment, right? And I didn't even tell him that. But you and many advocated for improved benefits.
Yes.
Can you talk about? It's never enough. You can't put a price tag on it, but it is important to understand that amount was relatively small for covering costs and taking care of kids. Can you talk about what does the government do now, SGLI, et cetera, and is there more that needs to be done?
Absolutely. We do. General Dempsey, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs, who sits on our board of directors, puts it beautifully. He said that the military does a magnificent job of rendering final honors, providing a final resting place, and administering benefits to those who are eligible. But then it really is up to us. It's up to a nation. It's up to an organization like TAPS to come in and support the family, emotional support, additional benefits, advocating for, in some cases, service connection. For example, if the death was a cancer, can we now advocate that was connected to exposures to burn pits, as you and I have worked on for many years? But this is our chance to leverage state benefits, VA benefits, make them more equitable, make them more comprehensive for the families. And we do a lot of that. That's a big part of our mission. It's never enough. How do you repay the service and the sacrifice made by our men and women?
Bonnie, I know it's a difficult time to talk politics, but on a parallel track, the Richard Starr Act that we've worked on for so long is being held up, unless it's changed in the last 24 hours or so, by one Senator, Ron Johnson in Wisconsin. This is something I feel like we've fought for so long, and now he's there's always one who says it's an expense issue. I remember being Rand Paul around 9/11 benefits. Can you talk about that piece of legislation, and maybe this can be, this can help people push that across the finish line?
Oh, absolutely, Paul. That is critically important. And we just had a press conference on Love Lives On, which is another very important piece of legislation for our surviving families. I don't know if you realize that benefits actually are terminated if a surviving spouse remarries. And many of our spouses who suffer loss are in their early 20s and 30s with little kids. And for the kids, they just want the chance to have a dad like other kids. It's not their fault that their dad was taken from them when they were little. And it's heartbreaking. But legislation like Richard Starr, like Love Lives On, it should be too easy. I mean, really, this is something that Congress should never oppose things that support the families of our nation's fallen.
We'll put a link to it in the show notes for anybody who's listening or watching and wants to contact your member of Congress. Do that now. It's another way you can help. Let's go below the radar on something that you and I talk a lot about, but I think the country is starting to understand. There were a number of folks who died. One of them included Major Sofli Davias, who was 46. He also served as an NYPD officer who passed away at Camp Buring in Kuwait.
Yeah.
Conspiracy theories abound, right? Oh, they're hiding the cow, but this folks who know that these things do happen when you have a lot of people deployed. It could be a heart attack. It could have fallen off a truck. Can you talk about the non killed in action, not as a result of enemy contact, that you also serve people who die in those ways?
Yeah, the vast majority of the deaths that occur today are not killed in action, so to speak, in hostile hand to hand. And Paul, as well as you know better than most, the warfare has changed over time. It is now a lot of drone warfare, IEDs. It's not that hand to hand of World War II or even Vietnam. So for our families, we really focus so much on honoring life and service and very quickly moving beyond the moment and the manner of death, whether that was a suicide, an illness, an accident, a heart attack, no matter how that death occurs or the geography of that individual, it is about the life and the service that we as a nation honor.
It's so important because you've been there, and I always tell people that Bonnie always says, mourn the loss, mourn their passing, but honor their life. And you celebrate birthdays, right?
Yes.
Not the days they die, which
I
is
love that.
so important and so thoughtful. I want to get to something good, but you also have a gala in Washington, D.C. next week, your biggest gala of the year. I would encourage people to donate if you're in D.C. I don't know if tickets are still available. They can support that. It's one of the most moving and inspiring events I ever go to, and I try to go as often as I can. But can I ask you on a personal level? Um, you lost your husband and
Yeah.
you keep chugging on and you deal with so much pain. A lot of folks feel like they just can't get through any more pain right now. They can't get through any more loss. How do you do it? And what advice do you have for people who are dealing with any kind of pain and loss right now?
Well, it's interesting with our families, we can shift from a moment of the pain into a moment of the gratitude. I'm so grateful my husband and I had the time that we did. I'm so proud of his service to this country. I'm so grateful for the families that we are able to bring together at TAPS, for the kids who have grown up in Good Grief Camp. You know, every opportunity that I have to speak with a family to turn my own pain around and allow it to validate what they're feeling is a gift. A lot of us now say, and in fact, I've had a couple of conversations today with families who lost loved ones in other aviation tragedies that just said, I'm so glad I have this community, that we can lean on each other, that we can be there for those newly grieving. So, Paul, thank you for this opportunity to share. We're doing at our gala, and thanks for mentioning that, a retrospective on this is the 25th anniversary of 9/11. Just making the point that TAPS was there in the Pentagon Family Assistance Center on 9/11, and all of those families that we met then who came together and we were supporting them now are still to this day part of our community. They're working for TAPS, they're peer mentors, they're running care groups, they're raising therapy dogs, they're doing all sorts of things. We did an interview with General Shinseki, who was Chief of Staff of the Army at the time, reflecting on TAP's presence then and that we are standing ready now.
Bonnie, you know that I've texted you a lot at 2 in the morning at all different times, and I'll say I got another one, and you respond in minutes. Your team jumps on it. You're like a 911 for our grieving folks, and you've never wavered. And I think it's important. Sometimes I have a hard time getting people to reach out to you, and I say to them, one day somebody else is going to need you.
Yeah.
And so many of those folks that came to you after 9/11 and came to you after Iraq and Afghanistan are now going to be there for families in the areas around Iran. There's a reason you got the Medal of Freedom, which is the highest civilian honor in our world. I was on Colbert this week. I told them they should have you on soon because no, I really do believe it. They need to understand this moment. And I don't think there's anybody who can do it better than you. You've been personally out there for so long. I'm just always inspired by you. And frankly, folks, if you think you're having a shitty day and you need some perspective, go see the families at TAPS and go see the leaders at TAPS who turn tragedy into power and into help and into community in a way that's just unbelievable. It blows my mind what you do. All right, let's finish with something good.
Something good, oh, something sweet. Feel the fire.
You're always one of the more positive people I know. I'm going to go first, then I'll come to you. In the spirit of TAPS and honoring the memory of heroes, we lost a great one this week. Rick Bolanos, one of the four Bolanos brothers who are kind of like the Sullivan brothers of Vietnam, a decorated Vietnam vet, educator, coach, lifelong advocate for others and for our country. He enlisted in the Army while he was in high school, served in Vietnam in the LRPS, was an Army Ranger, 1st Cav Division, 101st. And the four brothers, Rick, Louie, Bill, and a fourth brother, were notable because they were all from El Paso. And they all volunteered to fight, and they all came home together. I had the honor of meeting them years ago when they were advocating for veterans. They're just an incredible group of guys. Rick has an incredible family all around him. His wife of 45 years, Kathy, and his kids, Richard Bolaños, Alyssa, Rocky, and Dawn, 14 grandkids, 1 great-grandchildren, and an extended family. There's going to be services happening this week in El Paso. I'll also link to it in the show notes. But Rick Bolaños was one of the baddest dudes I ever met in all the right ways. And I just want to send my deepest condolences to him and his family, but also celebrate him as the best of what this country is all about. Rick Bolanos, my brother, you were something good and you are something good, and your legacy will live on. That's my something good, Bonnie. It's a sober one, but I think it's an important one. Over to you. What do you got that's something
Oh
good?
my gosh. Well, I tell you, with our gala coming up, we're just, we have a really wonderful lineup. And one of the folks who we're recognizing, and this is very quietly behind the scenes, but Jake Gyllenhaal is an actor who has portrayed many military characters. We're giving him our Guardian Angel Award because he stood with us. I've had the chance to meet with him. He's a huge supporter of TAPS. And he just did a video message for us, which I'll share with you, Paul. But, you know, there are so many people who do amazing work, but then very quietly are there in the most meaningful ways. Our little families, they're all out across America. They're grieving losses. They're kids without a dad. And when they have somebody like that who's cool, that really steps in to let them know they're seen, they're recognized, they're important, it is amazing. It means the world. So big shout out to Jake and for all he does for all of us.
I want to echo that. I've met Jake before. He supports a lot of great veterans charities, and is a good dude and gives back. And there's a lot of folks in the entertainment community. And you've been innovative in involving the entertainment community, sports, the NFL. You have a great partnership with the NFL and all these other sports leagues. If folks don't follow TAPS everywhere, you should, because, candidly, it's heavy stuff, but it shows how you can turn it into something inspiring. And Bonnie, I wish you would run for president. Maybe if Colbert runs for president, you can be his running mate. What do you say, Bonnie? Can we get you to run?
I tell you, you have my vote. Your episode on Monday night was epic. It was fantastic. Thank you so much for speaking for all of us. Paul, I love you.
What about Senate in Alaska as an independent veteran? What do you say, Bonnie?
All right, we're in. Let's do it.
All right, there you go. All right, here we go. Our first declaration. Bonnie's going to run for Senate in Alaska. But we love you so much. I'm sending massive hugs to you. Have a great event next week. And thank you for all you, everybody. This is what it's all about. Support Bonnie, support TAPS. When I talk about the helpers, there is no finer helper in America than the great Bonnie Carroll. I love you. And I hope to see you next week.
Thanks, Paul, so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. All right, there you have it, folks. The great Bonnie Carroll. She is a true angel. Now you understand why I picked Bonnie Raitt and I said she's an angel. She's a true angel and an amazing human. I wish she would run for office. I'm not kidding. I wish she would run for Senate or governor. Her home state is Alaska. So let's get the hashtag draft Bonnie going. I do think she'd be a great running mate for Stephen Colbert, or Stephen Colbert could be a great running mate for her. But she is a true hero. So donate, help, support TAPS. If you're in the DC area, there might still be tickets available for the event on Tuesday night with Jake Gyllenhaal, but we'll link it in our show notes. I put it out on social all the time, every time there's a casualty. But it's a moment where we can all step up. No matter what your background, no matter how you feel about this war, you can help those who are helping and help Bonnie. Bonnie is just continuing to personally sacrifice over and over again. And that's part of why I love her. She's one of the most amazing guests we've had. She's a regular guest. Next week, we've got some more amazing guests coming up. Admiral James Stavridis, who could have been a vice presidential candidate, is a brilliant man, one of my favorite guests. I'm honored to call him a mentor. He will be here on Monday. Next week, we might get Miles Taylor, who is now working from defiance.org. More on that. Ken Casey of Dropkick Murphys will be here, and we are now daily. So I'm going to keep it coming. Please keep following. I'm going to try to post these shows, thanks to Chris, usually in the evenings, like 5 to 7. So you can look for those. And on the weekends, we'll do some special episodes. We are daily, and we are back in the charts. Thanks to many of you, especially the newcomers. So follow us everywhere and subscribe. If you're listening right now on Apple Podcasts, hit subscribe. I'll wait. All right, if you're on Spotify, hit subscribe. I'll wait. If you're on YouTube, hit subscribe. I'll wait. If you're not, please, really, do me a solid. Just go over there. It's absolutely free. Hit subscribe on YouTube. We want to hit 10,000 subscribers. That'll help us reach a lot more people, and it kind of unlocks the machine and lets this really get flowing. But invite people that you know to join this conversation, especially around issues of war and conflict. I know this shit. My guests know this shit. And I'm going to help you understand this shit and figure out the path forward. You can also go to independentamericans.us, get some merchandise. We got some cool stuff there. And join our Patreon community. Chip in a couple bucks to help me keep bringing this independent content every single day. America's divided, but unifying around our opposition, our concern, our heartfelt dedication to the people that are coming home from Iran and the region, especially in caskets. It's a unifying moment. We can work together to provide support. We can provide a unified message that unites Republicans and Democrats and independents and calling for accountability. We have been working to change that for years, and this moment is when we can meet. And I want to add light to contrast the heat of all the other political and news shows, especially in a time of war. You don't need to see two people screaming at each other. You need to help people. You need to talk to people and hear from people that can help you understand it. And that's what I'm going to help you do with guests like Bonnie. So if you're now among the 45% of Americans who are independent, especially, this is your show. But if you're independent curious, if you're new here after Colbert or after one of my other recent appearances, welcome. Our independent movement is hope for the future. Just like Bonnie, country over party, people over politics, light over heat, challenging the status quo in politics and in media, especially in wartime, and fueling a new movement. And our movement is growing. You hear that every day. If Bonnie runs, it's really going to grow. We're bringing hope like Bonnie brings, that is the oxygen of our democracy. And if you enjoyed this episode with Bonnie Carroll, please share it far and wide and invite others to declare their independence. Introduce them to these leaders and this movement that are stepping up and putting people over politics. And stay vigilant, my friends, especially in a time of war, because eternal vigilance is the price of freedom. It's a price Bonnie's been paying for decades. And no, you're not alone in your vigilance. We're all vigilant, and we're all in this together. I'm your host, Paul Rieckhoff. Thank you for tuning in to Independent Americans. Happy Friday. We'll post a special episode on Sunday morning and also another one on Monday morning, usually highlights of a media appearance or something else, so look for those. And I will have a new show on Monday evening and every evening next week. Until then, go USA, go USA, go USA. Not just the Paralympic teams and our World Baseball Classic, but all of us. Let's go, USA. Stay vigilant, America. Stay vigilant.
Archipelago, he tells me the left and right are dreams for those without a clue. And when you wake, it's time to grow. And it's not cool to believe in school, but if I can say one thing, I've seen the children of the revolution and the good trouble they can bring. He says the red and blue are dead and independent is an attitude. An island in the sea of rhetoric and archipelago, he tells me the left and right are dreams for those without a clue. And when you wake, it's time to grow.
Powered by Righteous Media.